Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Wow, I see some familiar faces here. It's great. Old friends, and I mean that as in a long time, not as in old. And some new ones. Good morning, everyone. How are you?
Good morning.
Great to see everybody here. Thanks for joining us today.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Let's got one more.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
I love it. Okay, let's jump right in. It's great to have you all here with us today. I'm Dale Donovan B. I'm a MAPS Mastery Coach. I've been around for a while in KW Commercial. Here's some feedback if everybody would mute. Okay, thank you.
I'll get it, Dale.
I'm getting feedback. Okay, we'll try that again. So, looking forward to our discussions today. As I said, I'm a MAPS Mastery Coach. I'm coaching a number of you now on one-on-one, and several of you have been into our commercial mentorship program, so it's great to see your faces. I see some other coaches on here and some directors. Hey, Bo. So, we've got a great group this morning. We're going to do a PowerPoint today and going to discuss site selection process and how that can help you win clients and get your representation or your listing agreement signed. Site selection process in the commercial terminology and in the world, it's not just looking for a piece of land for a site. The site can also be a building, it can be a location, it can be a locale. So finding the right site and that process to get there is probably one of the key components to a successful buyer-tenant representation or to a listing agreement, because you want to show your owner or your seller what you're going to be doing and how you're going to be going through this process through either with them and the outside broker, or this is going to be the support that you have for the seller and the owner, so that they know that you're right there with them the whole time. This is the best way I know to secure your exclusive listing agreement. I've used this I have a form that I use called the site selection process. I'll show that to you in a little bit. And I've shared that with some of you, but if you would like to see this and sent to you later on, just drop your email into the chat box and I'll make sure that you get this, the PowerPoint presentation and the site selection process, and I'll send it to you. So let's jump right in. I'm going to share my screen here. I'm going to share this with you first. This is the site selection process that we're going to be going through today, and I will pop back and forth in and out of this. This is in a PDF, but I'll be sending it to you so you can kind of see the steps that we're going to be going through today and outlining to be able to do the site selection process for your tenants and your buyers. So I'll be showing that to you again in a few minutes, and that's the one I'll be sending you. So, a little bit about me. I've been with KW Commercial who is this lady, right? I've been with KW Commercial for about 13 years now. I've been in the industry for over 30 years. I have a little bit of experience in land. They affectionately call me the Dirt Diva, but I've also been a generalist and a specialist throughout my career because of recessions and having to morph and being a chameleon. You know what happens in this industry. Sometimes you have to change your specialty or your mode or your region in order to be able to continue to be successful and keep that cash flow going. So I've been very involved in publishing, and I have done my own, published my own women's business magazine, entrepreneurial magazine, and I'm also a co-writer of the Shift commercial book. These are ways you can reach me, ddonovan@kwcommercial.com, and my phone number at the end as well. So you'll be able to get that a little later on as well. There's nothing better than having an informed buyer or tenant or to have your seller knowledgeable about what you're going to be doing through this process. So getting expectations in place and knowing what that is going to be for them, what their expectations are, the tenant and the buyer, as well as your owner of the property, is going to give you a much...
Bill Donovan.
I'm sorry? Okay. It's a much smoother process, resulting in a successful transaction. That's what we want, a win-win-win. Not just a win-win. We want 3 wins in there. So exclusive broker agreement is the first required step. We all know that we don't do any deals or transactions without a written agreement, right? Everybody nod yes. Okay. So when you properly manage the site selection process, it saves your client money. It saves you time. It saves them time. It keeps you on track from not wasting time or money. And it also shows your prospect, your tenant or your buyer, what you can do for them. So it provides really a great presentation, like with your listing presentation. This is a great presentation that you can do with your tenant and your buyers in order to show them what you're going to be doing for them in this process and why they should hire you. Site selection process is the path to securing the exclusive brokerage agreement. I use this as my tool to get that agreement done. So the first step when you're looking at your site selection process is to qualifying. Okay, here we go. Qualifying. Financial capabilities to make sure that they've got not only the funds to be able to do either the purchase, because they should have a pre-approval from their bank or lending institution, but if it's a tenant, they need to be able to... am I blocking that screen for you? They need to be able to show to the landlord that there is going to be, that there is going to be sufficient funds for them to be able to run their business for probably the first 6 to 9 months without an income. If it's a new business, they have to have a business plan in place. They have to have 2 years of taxes. They have to have references, all of these things. And it's not just financial qualifications, but it's also the qualifications that they're going to be able to run this business successfully. So we can go more into that as well a little bit later on. But qualifying them and making sure and understanding what their expectations are is probably going to be the key focus for you to be able to get this done successfully. How many people agree to that? Yes. Okay. Geographic priorities. Well, we all know what that means. Where are you going to have the site? But there's a lot of things that are very interesting about this. Do they want to be near highways? Do they need to have housing available close to them? Is there something that is going to be necessary for them to have transportation opportunities through rail? Do they need to be near shopping? Do they want to be in a location that is going to allow them to be near other businesses that are ancillary to their businesses? So having the geographic area, sometimes it's just the executive that wants to be close to their house. But most of the time, the executives or the people that are making the decisions are wanting to be appropriate and making it easier for their people and their employees to get to work and to be at business. So you need to be able to make sure that it's safe and that it's geographically located for them in the way that they need to be located. Identify and evaluate specific sites. Well, I generally will do, if you're doing a site selection, we'll have maybe 4 to 5 sites that I've picked out, and I will identify those to the client, and I will then rate them according to what they've been telling me that are their expectations. So I can rate them from, I do a scale, whatever, 1 to 5, and I don't necessarily tell them which ones are the ones that I prefer or that I rate, but I make sure that they hit the majority of the expectation points and the requirements that my prospect is looking for, so that they understand that I'm going to be able to provide them with what they're looking for, not just something that I found. So being able to be specific and customize your search for what the client is looking for, really and genuine, it's very genuine to the client, and they're very loyal to you after that. There's parameters that they want. Maybe they need a lot of parking. Maybe they don't need any parking. Maybe they need to be in a safe place. Maybe they have people that are in and out 24 hours a day. Maybe they need to have a building or a facility that is open 24 hours, or if they do have need access to it on the weekends, that you can provide that. So it just depends on what each of the client's requirements are, and you need to evaluate those and make sure that you have all of that identified so that you can, show them sites and properties that meet all of their requirements or the majority of their requirements. I usually will, when identifying them and evaluating them, I'll probably come up with 4 or 5 if I'm lucky to be able to identify as sites that fit all of their requirements. You notice in step 4 here, the guy's got the gasoline pump to his head. That's probably what we're doing today with the price of gas. But that's happened to me when I went out early on in my career and I went to show my clients some sites. I thought, oh, I know this city. I know this market. I know exactly where I'm going. And I got lost with the client in the car with me. And I couldn't find the location. So don't ever do that. Always preview your sites first. Go out in the car, drive these sites. And if you can, if the listing broker that you're working with will have the time and permit it, you need to get into the site and actually take a look at it, or the building or the property or whatever it is, and actually take a look at it yourself physically so that you make sure that there aren't some major issues inside the property that you can't see from the outside. I rank the sites. Yes.
Oh, sorry. I just had a couple questions about, did you want to scroll up on the page a bit, or are you in the slide deck right now? We're going off the outline at the moment. They're just not seeing the same text as you're referring to on the screen.
Right now, step 4, they're not seeing that?
It just scroll the screen up a little bit.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks.
Is that good? Okay. Thank you.
Scroll.
So previewing the proposed sites is really a critical component to get out there and take a look at it and see and also by driving it, you get an idea of, what the property is, what it feels like, what it looks like, how you drive up to it, what the access is to it, what the parking looks like, what the building looks like, what the security around looks like, what the area, the safety of the area, those kinds of things that are very important to the client. So you need to be familiar with it before you show it to them. So that is also, it's an educational process for you as well as for them. I rank the sites, but I also tour the sites in either a fashion that is geographically acceptable, so that you're not going back and forth all over the place. Try to do a circle, or I do the farthest one out first and then come back. I know this sounds like a simple analogy, but you'd be amazed at how many times you can get into a situation where you're bouncing back and forth from site to site. I never show them more than 3 to 4 sites at a time. And usually if they can't identify what they want within 3 to 4 sites, I don't have a client that can or a prospect that can make a decision. So you need to be aware of what their expectations are if they're, as they said, able, ready, and willing. So ranking the sites, and this is particular to what you want to do. When I've taken, my clients out on, on the tour, where I position the best property is usually, I can do it in the beginning to make the comparison to all the others that don't fit. I can do it in the middle so that they can see the bad and the good and the ugly. I can do it at the end so that they see that the last property is probably the best one for them, and then they make a decision. So it's entirely up to how kind of you're gauging your client to see which site you put first into the tour. But always make it geographically, easy for you to drive it or for them to drive it with you, so that you're not bouncing all over the place. Make a circle, go out to the furthest one first and come back. All of those kinds of things that will make it a smoother process for you. Always have a tour book. Always have something in your tour book that, you have your map, you have your locations, you have your demographics, you have your road and transportations, you have your adjacent retail and office sites and things that would feed and be ancillary to the particular property that you're working with for the buyer or for the tenant. if there's questions, you can just throw them into the chat box, and I can kind of address them as we go along if it's on this particular one, or we can address them at the end depending on which fits the situation. Can you kind of keep an eye on that for me, Graham?
You bet.
Thank you. The proposal process. Outline items of importance specific to occupancy and build-to-suit. How soon do they need to move in? Do they have all their FF&E, their furniture, fixture, and equipment? What is it that they need to occupy the space? Is the build out in place? Have you been working with the GC and the contractor? Is it a build-to-suit property that you need to be on top of and possibly manage some of the construction and the GC? Not managing it yourself. I don't carry a hammer, but well, maybe I do. Kind of a I carry a hammer, but that's to clunk them over the head with if they need it. Getting the build-to-suit done or the construction done is always a challenge. So staying on top of that and making sure that the contractors are hitting their mark and that they're hitting the timelines that they have presented, because we all know that it can greatly impact how we have a move-in or an occupancy of a building or of a space. Also in the proposal process, when you're going after these proposal processes, take a look at the fact that you're going to be negotiating all kinds of areas negotiating all kinds of areas in the letter of intent. It can be for the lease, it can be for the timing, it can be for, how much free rent there is, it can be for, when the move-in is, when the lease starts, when the free rent is, all those types of things, so that you're constantly in negotiation. And a lot of people think, well, once you've found the space and you've got a lease in place, or that you're going to go for the lease, that you're done. Well, that's just when the fun begins. Negotiating that lease and making sure that is going to fit your client and that all the business components are in there the way that you want them and that your client wants them in there. And a lot of times they'll say, well, you can review my lease for me. I said, absolutely. I said, I'll review the lease for you and identify the business items that we've talked about. However, your attorney must review this. And I like the attorney to review the letter of intent too. Excuse me. I like the attorney to review the letter of intent too, because it gets them involved right up front. Sometimes they'll try to throw a wrench into it, but I'm pretty strong and I say, this is the letter of intent. Unless you find something, legally that's incorrect in this, we're going to move forward with it this way. I try to, curtail any involvement or changes in the letter of intent unless it's actually in the favor of their client. So if a client or prospect says to you, I don't need an attorney, I don't want to pay an attorney, run. Don't walk, run away. Because in that kind of a circumstance, if someone can't afford to pay an attorney in a commercial transaction, they shouldn't be in commercial real estate as far as trying to lease or buy a space. If they can't afford to have an attorney protect them, they shouldn't be in commercial real estate spaces. So if they're a business person, they know that they need to have an attorney. And if you have to convince them of that by offering them some opportunities of attorneys and lawyers that you may know, you can do from the individual lone wolf attorney to the law firm that has their lights up in shining, neon above their office building, then it gives them an opportunity to see the different variations of pricing and what services are by the different attorneys. But they must have. I don't work with anyone unless they have an attorney. So it protects them and it protects you as the broker. And the letter of intent too, as I said, run that past the attorney, make sure that it's with them, and make sure that you're before you present the letter of intent to the other side, make sure that your client has signed off on it, that they are in agreement with everything that's in that letter of intent. Even though it's not enforceable, that, because it says that at the top, this is not enforceable. However, you need to make sure that you're on the right page with them, because having that mindset and having that agreement and having the expectations and being on the same page with your client is absolutely important for you to be successful in this situation. So you need to make sure that they're in total agreement with you. And over again, you need to repeat that in writing to them so that they see what you're doing and that they understand that you're working for them in this relationship. There's others that you're going to be working with. If you're, depending on whether you're doing a build-to-suit or whether you're doing land for a site selection process, or whether you're doing space planning inside of a building, or whether it's an investment property, there's all kinds of professionals that you're going to be working with. So you need to be looking at architects, engineers, attorneys, appraisers, surveyors, title insurance companies, anyone that is involved in the commercial real estate transaction. You should have a list and of those people that are going to be working with you, so that you have the opportunity to go to them for questions, but also that if your client needs a reference or a recommendation, you can offer at least one or two professionals that they can work with. That is another recommendation that I give you. When you're giving references or recommendations on other professionals to your client, always give at least two, because then it'll be their choice and not yours. So that protects you and it protects your relationship. If they have a choice between two professionals and they interview them and they pick one, it's not your responsibility, it's theirs. So let's make sure that you are giving them some opportunities to make choices, and that it's their choice and not yours, so that the bullet doesn't come back and hit you. In space planning, working with an architect, engineer, or sometimes the building owners or the building managers will have their own space planners and architects and engineers. So that would, you would be interfacing with those, or you would be interfacing with the clients, professionals that they hire. And then on investment property, of course, we all know what there's the analysis and supporting documents, and pulling all of that together is a huge, huge task. So we need to make sure that when we're doing that for all of these properties, that we have those details that are, that we make sure that we have all those details covered for them.
Can you scroll down your sheet? We can only see through step 4.
I don't know why that is. I am scrolling. You don't see it?
Yeah, it looks like it's frozen.
All right, let me close it out and come back in again. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
What do you see now?
So we're seeing you go through the slides. There's site selection process outline.
Okay, good. Okay, so here's 4,
Perfect.
5. Okay, are you good now?
Yeah, I think we're on 5. I don't know if anyone else wants to interject, but yeah, 5. We were stopped at 4.
Okay, I'm going to go back then and just do a little bit then, because I didn't realize that you weren't seeing this. Okay, the proposal process, the letter of intent. Are there any questions on this? Because I was talking pretty fast and I didn't know that the screen wasn't up there. If there is, just pop in. You don't have.
There's one from Anastasia in the chat.
Yes. Let me take a look. And so you should just ask the question. What to bring with you when you're selecting a potential site for the credit, national or franchise tenants? Each of the franchise, if you're working with franchise tenants, they will have all of their requirements. They are very professional usually about how they handle this. If you go to their website, they'll have their real estate requirements on there. Make sure that you have all of that information and that you can meet all of their requirements for that particular franchise. Let's see, what to bring with you when you're selecting a potential site. I mean, you need to bring your demographics with you. You need to bring your information. You need to be the market expert. So you need to know what's going on around this particular site. You need to know where their other franchise locations are. You need to know where their competition is. And these are all things that you need to walk in with, or that you need to speak with them about prior to, you getting the opportunity to work with them. So, and a lot of times you'll have to work with one of their inside franchise real estate representatives. Sometimes they're required to work with you, and sometimes the franchisees are required to work with you, and sometimes they're not. So sometimes it'll depend on the franchisee to be able to identify whether they want to work with you or not. So those are kind of different issues. Specifically, to provide the best proposal when you're going to going to ICSC. If you have any experience with other franchises, that is always the best thing to bring with you, your experience and expertise in the past. If your connections, they may not even be the same type of franchise. It may be, like one may be a restaurant, another may be a financial advisor. So, but as long as you've had experience with some kind of national franchise opportunity, then that always goes a long way. Yes, you can get the slides.
I have a question if I can jump in.
Sure, Courtney, go ahead.
Thank you. So I've seen in our market that sometimes it takes landlords a really long time to get an LOI, or the landlord representative always tries to push the tenant rep into submitting an LOI that I draft first, which I don't like to do. How would you, if you were presented with that situation, navigate through that?
Okay. Well, first of all, in the very beginning, I did not mention this, and I should have mentioned it. What we're going to be looking at is probably a 6 to 9 month window to get this deal done on a lease, on a lease opportunity. So if somebody comes to you and they say, I need this yesterday, you probably don't have a client or a prospect that has realistic expectations, because from the time that you begin the process until you actually get a lease signed and maybe even occupy, it may take 9 months. And that sounds like a long time, but as you know, Courtney, these negotiations are taking longer than they have before. And so it does take this time. So the client has to understand that they need to start this process early, and going through that scenario. What was the second part of the question?
When a landlord representative
I try to get them to do the RFP. Give me an RFP. Give me your request. What do you want from us? Tell us what your expectations are. If they won't do that, I take the letter of intent and I pull it out of whatever the marketing materials are, and also what my client wants to what their requirements are, and I put that into the letter of intent. And I start with, I try to be as realistic as possible, but favor it to my side of the tenant, because whenever you get anything back from the landlord or the landlord's broker, you're going to be seeing something that is totally in their favor. So I try to do this totally in my favor. If they're pushing you to put a letter of intent together, it's not a binding situation. Just make sure that whatever you're putting together is realistic for your client and that they've in total agreement with it. If you're nervous about showing your hand first, just make sure that you're trying to be as realistic as possible. And if it's a low ball scenario, you prepare them for that, and you let them know, say, my client is just, they believe that this is the way it should be. So I'm presenting this to you, and I want you to understand that, we're open for discussion. So does that help, Courtney?
Very much so. Thank you.
Okay. Going back to the step 6, and is everybody can see this now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's go, Dale. You're on step 6 in the slides.
Okay. We were talking about this before, but the planning and the architects. Working with these contractors, we know, is going to be very, very important. So have your checklists. Have your, go through your contract whether it's a lease or whether it's a purchase, go through your contract and have the important dates there. Have the dates that you have to have certain things done so that you can stay on top of this and that you can have either support from an admin or from a junior broker or, whatever you need to do to be able to stay on top of this. A lot of times you can go through the contract and do it yourself. If it's a purchase and sale agreement, sometimes an attorney will do it, or in a lease, sometimes the attorneys will do it. Not always, sometimes they will. Sometimes a title insurance company will give you your date timelines. But if not, I always have mine so that I can compare it to whoever is giving me a timeline or whoever I need to be on top of to make sure that they're in line with the timeline. So I always have my own checklist of timelines. So that way you don't drop the ball or try not to drop the ball. Tenant buyer, architect, space planners, outlines and layout. Okay. Provide evaluation, analysis, supporting documents. Whatever the investor needs in investment property, you need to be able to go get those things and you be able to find them and be able to have your checklist also of the things that the client wants and the things that you need to make sure that you have a fulfillment in the contract or that you can get the deal done. Any questions on this? Okay. The economic market. Know everything that you can possibly know about this. One of the things that I recommend very highly is to get in touch with your Economic Development Council. It can be a DDC, it can be a Downtown Development Council, it can be the county's Economic Development Council, it can be a city's, it can be, they say, a redevelopment council or a development council. So they have all kinds of different names that, an RDA redevelopment agency or an RDC redevelopment committee. So it just depends on who it is, but they're the ones that are driving the economics and marketing your particular area. Get to know them. Let them know who you are. If you go in and you talk to them and you say, I'm a broker that is bringing in businesses to this area. I work with buyers, I work with tenants, I work with companies. So this is what, I would like to be able to market our area more effectively. What kind of marketing materials can you provide to me so that I can encourage people to come to our area and to show the growth that we're having and expecting? They will bend over backwards to provide that information for you. They can give it to you electronically. And usually you can use that as part of your presentation, going back to what you were saying, Courtney, too, is going back to what we were talking about, what you do and how do you be prepared for this and with your letter of intent. If you have marketing information that talks about the dynamics and the growth and the economy and who's coming in and who's going to be doing business in this area and what kind of businesses are coming in and so forth, it is an awesome, awesome way for you to be able to work with your landlords, to work with your tenants and your buyers, and it proves that you are in the know for that market and for the economy that's going on. You'll be known as the expert then. Any questions on that?
Who did you mention or to ask on regards to who's coming into the that specific community or that specific area?
Sure, you could ask. I don't. Sometimes they're in confidentiality agreements and they can't tell you. But a lot of times there will be things that they can express, and they can say, yes, we've got growth. We've got growth in the technology area, or we've got growth in the healthcare industry. Or sometimes they'll give you an industry without giving you a company, or they'll give you a direction. Or yeah, we've got a big company coming in on the west side of town, or over there across from I-4, we've got something that's going on. So sometimes they'll give you information without giving you specifics, but it gives you enough knowledge that you're able to be competent and talk to your client. Say, I know we've got growth going on here because I've heard these things and I understand that they're accurate from the Economic Council. And this is what, you can't specifically say who it is unless they've announced it, but that these are the things that are going on. There's great growth in the area, and here's some of the things that they're doing. And then you use your marketing materials that they gave you, put it into your packages, put it into your presentation packages, put it into your into your negotiation packages, so that they see that you're working from a position of knowledge and education and information about the area. And that helps people to understand that you know whatever side you're working with or talking to, that you're knowledgeable in the market and they can trust the information that you're talking about and that you're bringing to them.
Okay, my another question I have is like, how much do you usually charge when you're helping somebody to bring a franchise or open a franchise in certain area? How much do you charge? What's the commission you get? Or
Well, we can't set a standard for that. That's against the law to set a standard. But generally, it's what's colloquial, what's going on in the market generally. And a lot of times they will tell you, the franchise will tell you what they're expecting for it to be happening in the market. And you should probably be knowledgeable too of what's going on in the market. So, we don't really have standards. We have things that are common or usual. And that you find that that's happening historically, that has happened, but we don't really have a specific. Usually it's 1/2 of a commission, whatever that is. Because if you're representing one side, it should be 1/2 of that commission. Does that help?
I guess, yeah, like you said, I guess I have to find out from others.
Yeah, and always know what your commission structure is. There's no shame in asking about what you're going to get paid. Just don't ask for it first thing. Find out what they're requiring and everything else, and then always get your commission structure in writing. So that you understand what it is from the very beginning and who's paying it. Sometimes the landlord will pay it. Sometimes the buyer needs to pay it. It just depends on that relationship and who you're working for will, is the one that's going to pay you. Sometimes it comes from the other side too, because it's the landlord that pays the commissions.
Thank you.
Always be aware of what your commissions are when you're going in. Don't be afraid to ask about commissions. That we're professionals. You don't see doctors being nervous about charging, or attorneys being nervous about charging, or engineers or architects being nervous about charging. They have a fee because they're professionals, and so do we. We don't work for free. Final negotiations. You're looking at negotiating the lease, the purchase details, the terms, coordinated expedite execution of final lease and sale documents. We all know that we have to be prepared when we get into the contract, that there's always going to be some glitches, some things that are going on. Sometimes it takes further negotiation on both sides to be able to get this done. What you don't want to do is negotiate your commission. That is not part of the deal. You don't negotiate commissions. I say that I may have negotiated once or twice in my career for commissions, but most of the time, if they're trying to negotiate my commission at the closing table or whatever, I just stand the ground. And they'll say, well, can you negotiate your commissions? Sometimes beforehand, they'll say, well, can you cut your commission down? I said, well, here's all my services. If I discount my commission, which of these services would you like me to remove? And they go, oh, yeah. I said, if I discount my services, then I discount your services. I mean, if I discount my prices and my commission, I discount your services. But most of the time, I don't give them that option anyway. I'll just say to them, I don't negotiate, my services. I provide excellent professional services, and these are my fees and these are my standards. So if this is the way I do business, and if they won't negotiate that, then you don't really have a client that you're working with. Walk away. They'll be difficult anyway. Any questions on that? Okay. Construction and tenant improvements. We all know what this means. Oh, goodness. This can delay a process. They can make things happen that are just absolutely it can delay the process and everything. So stay on top of your GC and see what's going on. We all know what can happen in the residential market with a delay, and it's even more so in the commercial market. There are all kinds of things that can create delays in construction and in the tenant improvements. So make sure that everybody is on the same page with that, and that you have your checklist on these things too. These are your timelines. When does the tenant need to move in, or the client need to have the building? When do they, expect that this build-to-suit to be finished and completed? Who's paying for what in this process of going along? So all of these things, and I want to see if I can find a new share. Let me see if I can find the other document. Hang on one second here. Of course, I don't see it right now. I'm going to see if I can't find the other one. I'm going to show you the site selection process in just a moment when we close this one out here. And it will be all of these steps that we've just gone through here. And it's what I use to work with to show my clients or my prospects what I'm going to be doing for them. The closing and completion. Coordinate with your contractors and your property manager for closing and move in. Confirm that the contract negotiations and obligations are fulfilled to the client's satisfaction. And then here's the one. If they're happy and they're satisfied with you, which they should be at this point, this will be the happiest they'll ever been with you, because you get them moved in. Now is the time for you to get that referral information from them, or a reference, and say, would you give me a reference, to 2 or 3 of your friends, or 2 or 3 of your colleagues. And now is the time that you need to be able to follow up with them when they're the happiest with you, when you've closed the deal and the transaction. Ask for the referrals at that particular point in time. Do you know of anyone else that could use my services? So, and then follow up with them, thank them. If they have an open house or something that's going on and you get invited to that, show up and be grateful, and thank them for the opportunity, because that's where you're also going to find other opportunities in business. They may not be moving for 5 years, but their friends are talking to them. So there's a great opportunity to reach out and to their sphere of influence after that you've had the closing, or after they've moved in, or after they're occupying the space. Does anyone have a success story that's worked for them in the past with a follow-up or having a reference to them come from their client? Well, I hope you have one in the future then. Okay, we're going to summarize a little bit, and then I'll open it up for questions if there are more. The site selection process is the path to securing exclusive brokerage agreement. That's what we've been talking about. When you show them this process and you talk to them about it, they understand that this is why you're going to be working for them, and they understand that you're going to be with them side by side through this whole process. And it also, as you go through this, they go, well, I didn't know it's going to take 6 months to do this. And then you can explain what the time expectations are, or 3 months to do this, so that they understand and that you're going into the expectations with them too. The tenant improvements might be something you need to talk about, or what the expenses are in the build-to-suit. So, and then develop these long-term relationships through these successful transactions, and making sure that you're asking them to introduce you to other people that may be able to use your services, because they're your best audience right now. This little information on me. Also, I wanted to let everybody know, one of the things that we're doing, these are the coaching programs under MAPS Coaching. We now have 7 mastery commercial coaches that coach exclusively to commercial. It is an awesome time in KW Commercial. We have education, we have training, we have coaching, and it's nothing like this. I've been an entrepreneur. I've been a principal with NAI Global and with Colliers. So I know what the corporate structure looks like, and I also have been at my own company for 29 years. So I believe that KW Commercial is the best combination of corporate support and entrepreneurial spirit that you could find in the nation in commercial brokerage. So we have it all. We've got the education, we've got the training, we've got the tools, we've got the resources. So take advantage of all of those things that that are coming to you. And I'm looking where my last document was. And I have one more thing I want to pull up for you. And I'm going to see if I can find this. Here we go. Steps, types, and process. Can everybody see this on their screen?
We're still just seeing the Q&A slide.
Okay. Let me do a new share. Let me do a new share here. Do you see it yet? No?
Yes, we do.
Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, this is what you'll get, and you can modify this accordingly. The only thing that in this first paragraph here that I didn't put in, and I add this depending on who the client is and what the market situation is, I'll say that this process takes 6 to 9 months. So I usually give us that timeline right in here in this first paragraph so that people go, oh, well, I know it's going to take that long. Well, that's why you need to start this process a year in advance, or at least 9 months in advance, because it does take that long. By the time you find the property, do the evaluation, do the negotiation, take it through the attorneys, take it through, all of the other things that are going on, it can take that amount of time. Plus there's the move in and the build out and the tenant improvements and all those things. So it's a very long process. So these are the steps that, and you can modify these depending on, like down here, it says that whether you're planning your building or space building. I leave all this in because it lets the prospect know what else we do besides just working for them. So if they're just doing a space planning inside of an office building, I let them see how that we do this for investment properties and for, planning with other engineers and architects for, actual build-a-suits and those kinds of things. So I kind of leave it all in here to kind of show them what all of the other aspects of my business is that I do. In the economic market and amenity analysis. So you can always provide that information, as I said, from the EDC or from wherever else you get the information of what's going on in the market or about the building. Negotiations, we talked about that. Final lease documents. I hope everybody has their buyer-tenant representation agreement. If not, you need to have that. You need to have a buyer-tenant representation agreement that you present immediately upon. You don't. I recommend highly, and I will say I would strongly recommend against ever showing anybody a property unless they have been pre-approved or unless they've met the qualifications and filled out an application, provided you financial information, done all of these things. They'll go, well, I just, a business plan. Well, I just want to go out and just show me the properties. No, that's not the way we do business. If I take you out, I'm talking to the client now, or prospect now. If I take you out and I show you a building or a property and you're not qualified, there's no way for you to move forward. And the other side, the other brokers on the other side will then be very, very suspicious of anything that we bring them in the future, because the word gets around that we're bringing unqualified people to the table. So you need to be qualified before we take you in. And for those of you that are getting residential referrals to commercial, some of them haven't been qualified yet, which is totally understandable. You want those referrals to keep coming. Just make sure that you have the opportunity and that you make sure that they're qualified before you start showing properties. If you explain this to your residential agents, that the reason that you're not moving forward with this particular client is because they're not ready yet, and that you're helping them to get ready, or that they're preparing their documents, or they're preparing their application, the tenant application, or whatever it is that they have to complete to show that they are qualified for this, then the residential agents will understand. They wouldn't go out and show a property unless they had pre-approval. So they understand that, but you have to explain it so that they understand it in the commercial terms as well. So, and hopefully that'll help you get through some of these residential referrals that are coming to you. They're not qualified. It's not your job to qualify. It's your job to qualify them, but it's their job to get qualified. So the prospect. And if they're qualified, then you can bring them in, get them under an exclusive representation Never do this on a one-off situation where they're working with other brokers. Get them on exclusive representation, and then you can move forward and show them properties once they've met all the criteria for being qualified. And if they do that, great. If they drag their feet and they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, then that's their responsibility. It's not that you wouldn't that you wouldn't work with them. It's just that they're not prepared yet. So when they're prepared, you'll be glad to work with them. So you have to be, you have to guide them sometimes in these prospects and letting them know. And if they're not willing to do that, then they don't have the correct expectations, or they don't have the financing in place to be able to do it. So don't waste your time. Construction, assisting coordination improvements, planning your building, ensure the contract obligations are filled to kind of satisfaction, and then the closing. And celebrate your successes with your client. Once it's done, celebrate it. Take them out to lunch. Take them out to dinner. Do something. Take something by the office. Make sure that they understand that that you're right there with them through this whole process, and even into the celebration time. So I said this is the document that you can use. You can adapt this to fit your processes and to fit your particular prospects and clients and your particular way of doing business. But I found this as an excellent tool to show prospects what you can do for them and what your professional qualifications are to actually work with them and to come in. And that's why you require an exclusive representation from them. Any other questions on this one? I'm going to take a few minutes for questions. I have about 5 or 6 minutes left. If you have questions, I'll be glad to discuss any of this. I must have answered a lot of questions. How many of you use a tenant representation agreement, exclusive representation agreement, tenant buyer? Okay, I only see 1 or 2 hands go up. Everybody should be using an exclusive representation agreement before you start showing properties. So that's absolutely my advice to you on that one. Let me see if I've got any questions here in the chat box. I see people asking, and I have something I want to show you too before we jump off. Give me 1 more minute, see if I can screen share again. Give me 1 second here.
Well, I have
Yes.
one question.
Yes.
I have definitely used representation agreements with buyers. And I have submitted, the LOIs. And one of the things that I have that kind of brings me down is on regards to these brokers that don't present the offers, that you feel that they did not present your offer when you submitted everything they were requesting, like even the purchase price they were asking. And at the end, you feel like they did not present it. Have you ever had something like that?
You mean that the other broker isn't presenting your offer? That's against the law.
Right?
I mean, I wouldn't be doing business with that broker ever again.
Right. Yes. No, that's definitely how I feel. Unfortunately, I do have a client that it keeps, going through that specific type of.
So what does the attorney say?
Well, I did communicate it, definitely with my broker, but they didn't want to go there,
Well, I mean, what does your client's attorney say?
But actually, I represented the buyer, but we submitted the LOI to the broker. We did not have, at that time, we didn't have no attorney.
Okay, that's why I'm saying to you, that's why I ask you the question. If you had an attorney in this situation here, you wouldn't have a problem, because that letter of intent would have been looked at by the attorney, and the attorney can call him up and say, hey man, you're not paying attention to what's going on here. You just got a letter of intent. You're breaking the law.
Okay.
So you don't have anybody to support you right now. Your client needs an attorney.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Do you see what I'm saying?
Sense, yes, especially with this specific one, because I know.
And that's why I said I do not ever work. And then people say I can't afford an attorney. I don't want to pay an attorney. Then you shouldn't be in this. You shouldn't be in commercial real estate. You should not be looking at properties. You shouldn't be doing this. If you can't afford to have an attorney protect you in your business, you don't belong in business. I mean, that's just the way it is. So they must have an attorney. It protects you and it protects them. And this is one of those perfect examples of that.
Very good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Very helpful.
Any other question? Okay, I got one more minute here that I just want to show you something, and I've got to pull this up if I can find this silly thing. Here we go. We have coming up on November 2nd is the Commercial Mentorship Program. And we are really excited about this opportunity to be able to have this program for all of you. It is a 6-month program that is meant for those that are in commercial real estate that either have a mentor and they don't have time, the mentor doesn't have time to work with them over the next 6 months, or that they don't have a mentor in their office and they need someone to help them get through the initial stages. If you've taken Nucleus first, you've already got the basics down. Following Nucleus is this commercial mentorship program that takes all the things that you learned in the Nucleus program and moves it into action for you. And we work together for 6 months. We have documents, we have workbooks, we have videos. I have experts that come on and talk. So this will be our 3rd series. And we're absolutely just flying through this, and it's a very, very welcomed scenario for those that need a mentor. And I even have a lot of the seniors that are on, senior directors that are on and in this program, because then they take that information back to their agents and they help train them that way too. So please look at the fasttrack.com, and I'll put this. Did you put the link in there, Graham? For the mentorship program.
I put it in there. I was going to share a testimonial from our first launch.
Oh, great. Wonderful.
Yeah, in the chat. So people get an idea of what you're all about, what the program's all about. Quick little shout out from one of your former students.
That's great. One of my exes. That would be good too. My exes still love me.
I'm sure they do. Don't doubt it.
Okay. So are there any other questions? Anything I can help you with on this particular one? We'll get this site selection process out to you. I appreciate everybody being here today. If you have the opportunity and you want to get further into some of these details and more of the documents and the transactions and actually putting this into play, get involved in the mentorship program.
Yeah, and I shared one more testimonial there. Somebody asked if this is for newbies. This came from as a new agent coming from technical background. Another testimonial for you. So,
some of it is for the newbies in the very, very beginning. A couple of them were doing planning, so that's for newbies and for everyone. But there's intricacies inside the program that address those that have been in the industry for a long time. And there's those that, and it's for those that are brand new as well. So you can learn according to what you are in the industry right now and what your capabilities are. And then we also support you with the seniors that are in there as well. So, and we have other opportunities for them. So if you're not at that $75,000 mark yet in earning commissions, then this commercial mentorship program is the way for you to start. If you're at that $250,000 or $400,000 mark and you want to take it higher, this is also a program that you can work with, because we're going to show you how to take everything that you've got in the tools and the resources inside KW Commercial and put them to work where you think you can improve your GCI and grow your business. I'm available for questions offline, so you could always reach me at Donovan at kwcommercial.com, or my phone number 407-491-0005. And it's been a pleasure talking with all of you today. I hope I've been helpful, and thank you for being with us.
Thanks, Dale.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.